What's that?
I mean, it was.
Morning.
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 That's good. No, it's just project stuff. I was racing to get solar panels on our roof before the federal tax credits. And that was a little.
Thank
bit. So,
I read
but
your
it's
email.
resolved.
I don't know if I
So,
responded.
we got done.
I think I had questions.
Oh,
It was about Sweetbriar.
So.
you're welcome to ask me about that
I may-
during the open session or now,
At some point.
Yeah. outside of this too.
Sure. Okay.
I'm still learning the app. I'm like, the app is terrible.
Well, that's fine.
All right, yeah, let me know when you're ready.
Those are your daily use.
Yeah, 1 minute.
Can-
This, we have.
Well, let me see.
Inverters. Yeah, see that.
All right.
You know,
For
Sweetbriar, do you know if John is coming?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I guess I don't know anything to the contrary.
Well, I'm gonna send a text message, because normally that's what we would used to do, is text message the person and say, are you late? Are you?
Feel free to.
Probably don't.
That's awesome. I mean, that's fun and.
All you need is sun.
That's right.
I know.
Oh, he's here.
He's here. We
That
have
was
a
meeting
house
for 9 o'clock on a.
Yeah, really, yeah.
It's gonna grab a while.
All right, folks, good morning, everybody. It's almost 9 o'clock here. We'll get things started. Just let's get everybody settled in. Take about 10 seconds here. We'll get this meeting started, so. All right. Chrissy, do you know if Kate Aldrich is online and able to join us?
He has not tuned in yet, no.
Well, we will get started without her in that forum here. I spoke with John and John had, we came to an agreement that I'm gonna run today's meeting here.
Thank you, Dee.
So in the same format, we'll proceed as follows. So I think we'll call this meeting to order. The time is 9 a.m. and today is Monday, November 24th in the year 2024. This is a meeting of our Village of Shoalwood Hills. It's a special board meeting that trustee Barford and I called. So Chrissy, again, just you confirm, but we are recording and we're streaming live on Facebook. Thank you so much. So we are past the call to order and now that gets us to the roll call. Chrissy, if you wouldn't mind calling the roll, that would be appreciated.
John Ives,
Present.
Carol Barker, here. Martha Siller,
Present.
Folk, Mark Letter,
Here.
John Hamilton,
Here.
Kate Olson.
I guess I'm gonna just state for the record, I've not heard from Kate that she wouldn't be attending. Matter of fact, I think she confirmed that she would be, but perhaps she's dialing in just now. All right, this gets us past roll call. As typical in our standard agenda template right now, I would entertain a motion to approve or modify the agenda if such interests are out there. So is there a motion for the agenda approval? Or any variant thereof? Carol?
To approve the agenda as presented.
All right, is there a second for that motion? Thank you very much. Let's get down to voting on this. Are there any other, I guess all those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, thank you. So that motion passes. Chrissy, at this point in time, I get to ask you if we are in compliance with the open meetings law and has this meeting been properly posted?
Yes, the meeting was properly posted.
Thank you so much. As far as procedures and orientations are concerned, welcome to those that are attending here in person. Thank you for joining us. For those that are online viewing, hello, welcome. And for those that are watching the recording, yeah, thanks for joining us.
We have Keith.
Yep, I recognize you a minute or two ago, so thanks for joining. All right, so we're past agenda item 5, and that brings us to item 6, public comments. And as typical, not as typical, as it happened the last two meetings. This is an opportunity for the public to speak and provide comments. As I've run the meetings, I'm going to ask folks to limit their comments to 4 minutes. I will raise my hand with 3 minutes and 30 seconds to go and ask you to wrap up your comments. I do encourage everyone to provide written communication if necessary. You can't fit all your comments into that 4-minute time period. I hope that's pretty clear, and we'll just try to communicate that way. All right, so I guess I'm all set. Are there members of the public that wish to provide comment? Yes. And if you could just identify yourself for the record, you don't have to state where you live, but that would be helpful.
Of course. So I'm Kurt Hansen. I've talked to you before. I felt I kind of ran out of time last time, so this time I'm just going to wrap up my comments about 1202 and 1206 Sweetbriar Road. I thought I'd jump in first because you'll get distracted by the other issues that are going to come before you tonight.
Appreciate that, Kurt.
You're welcome. First, I want to show you this handout. The picture at the top was in the Washington Post this weekend. We are not, this is in Fairfax County, Virginia, where someone clearly started building this egregious house. And there's a whole article about it called The Hulking Home. If you get the Washington Post, you might want to look at that. I gave you just a summary document here. But even before I go to that, I want to just call out a couple people I think have done a really good job this fall, especially with this issue. Mark, I just want to say you kept your eyes on the finances. Thank you. I thought your presentation, Andrea's last Wednesday, whatever day it was, I could actually understand it. And so someone has to be looking at our long-term deficit. So thank you and your finance committee for doing that. And Brian, when I met with you after the ZBA, you very honestly said, you know, Kurt, I've got all these other issues in front of me and that this is going to go to the side. And you've done that. And that's what we need in a village manager administrator. You know, from the budget to logic to whatever, you've kept your eye on the ball. And just because this is my issue, I'm coming before you now. So just to remind you, we appealed the building permits for these. We won on the one called parking space overhang. And on this sheet, I just showed you what the violation is with the two little green cars on it. That they are still both designed with the new plans where when people park in their driveway, they're parking on village property. And that is not allowed per a zoning ordinance. So that's why we won that point. Okay. Some of the other things we've talked about, there's a new violation for 1202. I don't know why they put parking spaces in the front yard because that's prohibited by a different zoning ordinance. So they've actually created a new ordinance or new violation when they've submitted their new plans. Brian and I talked briefly about this width of parking spaces, the preservation topography. I handed this out to you last time. This was, I think, a 2-2 vote in front of the ZBA, but I just want to explain to you why we will win this if we have to go to court over it. So if you look at a natural grade and you look at this line determined by the 1 foot by 1.5 foot kind of ratio, you cannot carve out below that dashed line. And so on the back page, I'll show you what a violation is. If you build a retaining wall that goes below that line, that's a violation. If you terrace it, it's not a violation. So this ordinance is actually owned by this group, the village board, because what it says only the village board can make an exception to this. We also found 2 court cases that have held the topography violation. And so I think if we go to court, we're going to win that. So I just want to be clear that even though we may have lost some of these in front of the ZBA, I think we'll win them in court. The letter I gave you last time was talking about the front yard setback. And I truly believe that any way you try to interpret this, do a legal interpretation of this exception for this 40-foot buildable depth, it doesn't work. That if you read it literally, in other words, grammatically correctly, it does not apply. If you go by intent, it does not apply to new lots. And these are new lots. This was only intended to apply for existing lots at the time the ordinance was written. Carl France wrote a letter in 2021 where he actually reinterpreted this. And then just the sensibility argument that it just doesn't make sense to allow this to happen. So I put my recommendations here again. These are exactly the same that I had in my letter. Brian has already met, I think, with Bill. I think that meeting again with the original consultants, you may be doing that, Brian, I'm not sure. The Plan Commission should own the FAR requirement. The village board, as I said, owns the topography argument. And if I were you guys, since this is probably going to a lawsuit, I would meet with Bill Cole in closed session to really look at the risks you're taking by whatever decision Brian chooses to make. So thank you, and on with your meeting.
Thank you. All right, are there members of the public wishing to speak? So the floor is yours. Please identify yourself.
Brian Etching, 3414 Lakewood Road Drive. So we'll start just by addressing John, what his quotes in the isthmus. So in the isthmus, you said that the facts were proven and verified, that all people had the same information. Okay, this is, I believe, demonstrably not true. And I think that Carol, for example, could teach you a lot about what proving something in facts mean. You, sir, may have proven it yourself with an internal review or something that you know, but what you haven't done is responded to Dave DeVito's open records request. You haven't demonstrated or provided the documents that Shabnam asked back. You have not demonstrated to us where you came up with a whole number of data points from that P&L that are in subsequent pieces of information that are missing. On video, Mark, Bob, yourself, Brian, all have acknowledged that you were aware of the fact that the business wasn't making money, that it was losing money to the tune of 1.1 something million dollars a year. The only place that exists that I'm aware of that was ever in any information that was shared was when Shabnam sent that P&L. Instead, you told us that that building was not closed because it was profitable. And you never amended that record, sir. And that was not shared with any of your peers that are here. So what I would like to do, Bob, I have one of these for you because you saw this as an affidavit that you can sign. Shabnam can stamp it if you're feeling so inclined. John's is an affidavit for you. It's on one of them. Brian's is for you. And Mark is for you. To swear under the penalty of perjury that you were unaware of the fact that the building was losing money prior to. So you shouldn't be afraid of signing this if, in fact, that is true. So that's one. The information was not shared amongst all people equally. You could prove that by sending us the alternate documents you referred to, or by sharing, which you simply haven't. A Dropbox that's empty that is different stuff isn't proving it. An internal review doesn't prove to any of us that that information is real. Okay, so that's issue one. Issue number two, the IP addresses are also a real thing in my mind. So, Brian, the employee that came forward that put those from Village Hall, do they work regular business hours in this office? Are they an employee that works in this office during Monday through Friday, 8 to 5?
You're asking me?
Yes.
I can't comment.
Okay, so let's just assume it's a village staffer. So they work in regular business hours. Those comments were made Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday from business hours. At the same time, an hour and a half away, there was a second poster doing it from the Watoma area. We know there were two people making posts. It's physically impossible. They were one employee. Okay. So John, you're saying that person came forward. They reported to Brian. We know who it is. That cannot be true. Okay. Then while I did circulate to you all the similarities that AI found with speech patterns, the formatting, the phrasing, the punctuation with your own writings online, it's also true that I only did that because I and everybody else that read those 6 comments that this looks like John's writing. It sounds like John. It's got the same punctuation as John. It's got the same cadence as John. So I was only, all we were doing was confirming our own suspicions there and trying to put some other quantitative wrapper around it. It doesn't match anybody else's. It talks about CIPs, levy limits, all the rest of it. So Brian, it wasn't one employee. There must have at least been 2. And I knew you've only identified 1. It's impossible. It's 1. And if, okay, thank you. And if it is 1, David DeVito has an open records request for it. That person would have been subject to disciplinary action. And according to Wisconsin law, we residents and the rest of you have a right to see that disciplinary action. This is a matter of dishonesty, public record on a village hosted website, okay, to drive policy to purchase $6.5 million. We are entitled by Wisconsin law to see it, and we will with a mandamus brief. So I also gave you another affidavit to swear that those were not you. I expect to see both of those signed and returned because we will be going to court about it.
Yep. All right. Are there other members of the public wishing to speak?
I will.
Sir, you got the floor. Please identify yourself.
My name is Peter Hans. I live at 2909 Columbia Road, and I'm sorry to leave my back to the camera, but I need to direct my comments to Mr. Ives. I wrote a letter to you on November 5th of this month, obviously, requesting your resignation. I feel even more strongly now than I did then, that you should resign. Going forward with you as president means continued calls for your resignation, no letting go of the issues that have created such resident distrust. We will be going through this meeting after meeting after meeting. And that distrust relates to you and how this village has been governed during your first term and this second term. If you do not resign also, then the chance of any referendum passing next year, and that's going to be discussed, I think, at Finance Committee today. There'll be a consultant coming in. The chance of that is very, very slim. Anything you write or say now sounds insincere. It sounds like a sales pitch, especially when you use the word transparency. So whatever you might publish in any way, written, verbal, whatever you say will seem insincere and won't be trustworthy to many, many residents in this village if the village needs to go to referendum. The actions of government should reflect the will of the people. In this case, I think a large majority of the residents of this village would like to see you resign. And that includes 2 of the trustees sitting at this table. For the good of the village, please resign during this meeting.
Thank you. Are there other members of the public wishing to speak? Please identify yourself. The floor is yours.
Caroline Mahaney Braithwaite. John, I find myself in an awkward situation because it comes to pass that this is the second time I'm having to ask you to resign from an organization. Both times it's been because of your inability to actually produce on the job. Job I'm speaking of course, is WPUI, where you were supposed to be the environmental voice on that board. And you were not. You didn't show up. You never gave us speakers. You never did anything. So we ultimately asked you to resign. So now I'm back in the same situation, asking you to please resign again, because you've not done a service to this village for the last 3 years. And I'm with Peter on this, that this is not going to die away just because you come in and say, I have a new plan. No, we can't trust your plan. So please do us a big favor and resign today.
Thank you. Are there other members of the public wishing to speak?
I am Kate Crowley, 3428 by Burns. Picking up on something that Brian Uchig had mentioned, I wanted to talk about the P&L, because it's from logic. It's confusing. And I'm hoping that today we can get some answers, because John emailed you, asked you these questions. You haven't answered me. Perhaps today this discussion will bring out answers. At the October 21st meeting, in reference to Shabnan talking about the P&L, you said, and I looked at this morning, this is a quote, I saw it. I don't know what that is. It's not something we could have shared. I'd like to understand, why is there something that you had that you couldn't share? Maybe I just need a lesson in public records on why you couldn't share something, but I would like to understand that. Then, November 22nd, the Isthmus, you said every trustee had access to the same information throughout the logic process, and that you never reviewed the detailed P&L. How can both of these statements be true? I want to give you the chance to explain how they can both be true. You haven't responded to emails about it. They don't seem like they could be true. The one explanation I could think of is somewhere in between all this, you mentioned a few sheets of financial data from the building. This was an email on October 3rd. So I talked to Shabnan about that, and she shared a revenue report that Brian Mooney sent her October 15th. It's PDF. It's completely unclear what it is. There's no title. called Moose Revenue, so we know it's related to Logic. I don't know if it's the restaurant, I don't know if it's the daycare, I don't know if it's the whole building. It's from 2022, that's clear, and it's showing over $1 million of loss in that year. Again, I don't know what this is. I want to know how the village had this. It wasn't in the Dropbox. I don't know where it came from other than Brian's email to Shabna. How did we have this? And it wasn't in the open records requests. Did the other trustees have it? And how does anyone look at this, even not understanding it like I do, and say, oh, that's a lot of numbers in parentheses that add up to $1 million a year, $80,000 a month. How do we look at this and not say, let's ask some more questions? Because we're putting the village's financial future on the line. You know, John, that what $1 million a year would do for this community? That's a lot. That's a third of our operating revenue. This is a significant piece of information that should have been investigated further. And I'm just disappointed with the due diligence that went into this. If, in fact, the trustees had this, I don't know if they did, because Shabna didn't get it until October 15th, after everyone's good due diligence work was done. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other members of the public wishing to speak? Yes, sir. Identify yourself.
David DeVito. This is a bittersweet moment in my mind. And I say that because I'm very pleased and proud of Dietmar and Carol for having the bravery to bring this forward, and any other trustees that officially call for John's resignation this morning. I very much thank you. I think a lot of us have been waiting for this. I think there's been a lot of work put into this. A lot of residents and board members have really almost put their lives on hold not to attack John. This is not personal, but because they love this village and they're worried about it. And that should be acknowledged. And this is the culmination of a lot of that work, and it makes me very happy that we're here. The hard part is, outside of everything that, obviously I agree with a lot of the detail that's been mentioned about the postmortem logic and other things. This is not a new issue, John. Like, you barely won the election. And in your email after you won, you said all the same things you're saying today. You said, we're going to do better on transparency. I understand I need to do better. And honestly, even previous to that election, there has been a string of board members who have resigned, lots of committee members who have been incredibly frustrated and resigned. It's been a trail of destruction along the way. And the reason this meeting is so important, trustees going on record, is because it represents all of that destruction, all of that frustration. It's not just us. There is a large majority who are very unhappy with the way this village is being run under your leadership. You can make excuses. You can say we've got this problem, we've got that problem, I'm doing my best. Ultimately, it falls on you. The buck stops with you, and we cannot move forward. We finally have debt capacity. We finally have money to spend on important things. We can't do it like this. This is going to be a continued disaster going forward unless you resign today. It is not fair to those who have given our time, to those who have come before us, to people who are on the board who couldn't do it anymore. All their work needs to be recognized by this board today, regardless of what we just figure out with the P&L and the IP addresses. This is a much larger issue. And I'm happy it's culminated today. I thank you, Dietmar. I thank you, Carol, for having the bravery to bring this up. Shabna, I thank you for being the tip of the spear on a lot of this and putting yourself out there to do this. I hope this works, because I really don't want what could potentially be a very, very ugly next 6 months to a year, both financially and for the village. This is tearing the village apart, and it's sad. So please resign today, John. Thank you all.
Are there other members of the public wishing to speak? Is he well in the room? Yes, sir. Please identify yourself.
Nathan Candela, 3444 Lake Mendota Drive. I guess I'm just gonna go on record to say I agree with everything that's been said, and I also want to call for your resignation. I just want to go on record as another person coming forward saying that, so that we just have even more of a groundswell to make this happen, hopefully today, as everyone has said. I'll just leave it at that for.
Thank you. Are there other members of the public wishing to speak? Let's see, while I scan the room, are there folks online that would like to add commentary? Because if you're online, could you please raise your hand if you would like to add commentary? Yes. Yes, Paul.
Yeah, Paul Lambert, 1242 Sweet Briar Road. I wish to extend my own concerns regarding Mr. Imes' actions as the president of the village, not just in the context of the logic, but also in the context of the CSM decisions that to this day I still think are at the heart, at the foundation of the problems on the Sweetbriar Columbia Road property issues that we're dealing with continuing now. So I agree with everyone else that Mr. Imes, you should resign and allow the village to move forward.
Thank you, Paul. Are there other members of the public wishing to speak? I'll count to three, and it doesn't look like there are other people wishing to speak in my head quietly. Let's say one last time, are there other members of the public wishing to speak? All right, seeing none and seeing none online, that closes the public comment period. Thank you. We'll bring this back to the board here, and that gets us to item 7, which is the item of today's meeting, and that is a letter that Carol and I have created and signed, and John, which in that letter is asking you to resign. Now I'm gonna probably just, just one second before you do, I'll have you take the floor. I'm only gonna speak for myself. So as I'm looking at Carol, that there might be other motivations for this letter. I want to categorically state that motivation for this letter has a couple of root origins, and I want to state this, that this is not a witch hunt. I don't want this to be a witch hunt. I've got zero interest in that, but it is an ability for you, John, to check in with the body, the board that's before you, and that governs alongside with you. And it's an opportunity for you to understand where the rest of the body sits and then be able to react to that. So I think as we set a stage here for other comments from trustees, I think please keep this in mind, that I don't want this to get off the rails, but really to make the point brief, maybe not brief, but to the point, and provide clarity of what we believe to be today's result, action, and for your ability to check in with this body. So this is the public forum. So those are the words that I'd like to say. John, before I get to you, I'm going to give Carol a chance to speak as well, because her and I are both the authors of this letter. And then we'll turn it over to you. Carol, do you want to add a few comments?
Yes, I don't think I have any overarching comments with respect to the procedures here, but I'm just going to add my personal comments at this time. It's my turn. You've all seen the letter, and it expresses that we're concerned about lack of trust, honesty, and general conduct of business by John, and we're very worried about the ability of the board to conduct our business, which we desperately need to do. Very important things on the docket. Since writing that letter the last week and a half, I have not read or heard anything to change my mind, including the responses from President Imes. They are very carefully worded, and in my mind, they leave dark corners where uncertainty still exists. I appreciate the forensic work and the logical attention to the events that our neighbors have, all the time and effort that our neighbors have made because they care about the village. And I would like to, this is finally my chance in a properly noticed meeting with an agenda item that corresponds to corroborate my neighbors' sentiments of concern and dismay. I'm concerned and dismayed, just like my neighbors. So, so personally, I am asking you to resign, John, and that's my statement.
John, you expressed to speak next, so I'll let you.
Thanks,
take the
Steve
floor.
Murray. I have a statement I'd like to read. Well, thank you again, all of you, for being here. I want to address directly the concerns and allegations that brought us to this special meeting. First, regarding Logic, the allegations that information was withheld are not supported by the facts. Throughout the process, every trustee had access to the same materials. Certainly the appraisal, the independent financial analysis prepared by trustees Falk and Lederer, staff documents, architectural reviews, and all the public input. And I realize there's information that's on open records requests right now. You know, Brian and staff are working diligently on that. They've had to deal with budget. They've had to deal with 50% staff, and that's their process. When questions later arose about the detailed Logic P&L spreadsheet, we conducted a thorough review and confirmed with staff and with the seller's broker that the village never received the document. That's a verified fact. And I'd be happy to answer some of the questions that Kate raised. I also need to address the accusation that I authored or directed the disputed Logic poll entries. Let me be absolutely clear. I had no involvement whatsoever. I did not write them, did not submit them, did not direct or encourage anyone else to do so. I had no knowledge of those entries until a resident raised them and the administrator handled the matter internally as a personnel issue. And that process matters. Under Wisconsin law and village policy, HR matters belong to the administrator, not the board and not the president. Those boundaries protect staff and they protect the village, and I respect them fully. What concerns me most is the reliance on AI authorship analysis to make or imply accusations. This is not forensic evidence. It's not accepted by courts, by law enforcement, because it regularly produces false positives. We cannot let these types of guesses replace verifiable facts or become a tool for public accusations. The board wants factual evidence or wants a factual reassurance. I fully support a neutral technical review of IP and network logs. This is how you resolve questions objectively, and I would welcome it. But we need to acknowledge the broader issue. The tone and mindset, mistrust around these discussions have become increasingly hostile and accusatory. That is not how Sherwood Hills has historically governed, and it's not healthy for our board, our staff, or our community. Residents expect us to focus on three things: honest, fact-based decision-making, respectful dialogue, and working together even when we disagree. I understand that during a long and involving process like Logic, some communications may have felt unclear, and I take responsibility for improving. But confusion is not dishonesty, and disagreement is not misconduct. We are in the middle of major long-term work: our strategic plan, facilities planning, governance updates and zoning updates, and multi-year financial and capital decisions. Continuity and stability are essential right now. My commitment is to rebuild trust, strengthen communication, and help restore the civility that has always defined this village. And my goal today is simple: to listen, to lower the temperature, to help us move forward together with respect and honesty. We're neighbors first, and we will get through this by treating each other that way.
All right, thank you, John. I think I'm moderating the meeting. I'm not sure what is best here, but as I stated before, I think this is an opportunity for you to check in with your fellow board members and understand if they are behind you or not as both the president and moderator of any future meeting. So I'll open up the floor to trustees to share their thoughts and comments, and we'll move through it that way. Are there any folks that want to speak and add commentary? Kate, I see you're moving. Are you unmuting yourself?
Sure, I can. Hey, everyone. Sorry that I couldn't be there in person today, and I will keep my statement short. And John, I wish we were face to face, as you mentioned. I am joining Carol and Dietmar in my ask that you resign. I also think it should be today. The village needs new leadership. I, over the last 7 months, have lost confidence that you can bring that kind of leadership. For the good of the village, we need to have a fresh start. As mentioned, we have a ton of projects before us. And I do think that we need a fresh look and we need a new direction. This has been a pattern of behavior that I have observed and that other residents have observed for many years. So I'm sorry to ask this of you, John, but I do think I would like to join all the residents today that have asked for this, and Carol and Dietmar, and ask for your resignation today. Thanks.
Thank you, Kate. Are there other board members that wish to share their thoughts in regards to the letter? Mark.
Yeah. So my concern is, I mean, many accusations have been made. Some of them we may never know. But what's clear is there been a loss of trust, which I think is the essential issue here, because it's going to be extremely difficult to provide leadership. And I think that's why you ran for president. You are president, that the residents voted you into that. And I think that's a very high bar. I'm not looking to overturn an election, nor is anyone else, I hope, here to do that. But on the other hand, my presumption has been that you ran for office in the best interest of the village. And I think that's what we have to take into account now. What is in the best interest of the village? There are many issues before us, and I know that you feel like you can add a lot of value to the village, but you can only do that to the extent you enjoy the confidence of the board and the confidence of the residents. And I think that crisis of confidence, because of the confusion of the recent events that have happened, is a real obstacle. And I'm not sure why you would want to continue to hold this office, given the obstacles before you, given the challenges before the village, and just the sheer difficulty of it. The board has of late started to assert its own responsibilities and its own agenda. I think the board is going to end up owning and controlling the agenda going forward. So when you really look at the president's responsibilities, a lot of them have to do with just representing the village, moderating meetings. I just am concerned that at a time when leadership is needed, that it just won't be there for many residents and for largely for the board as well. So I look forward to your response on that. I know you feel like you can be effective, but you can only be as effective as you can persuade the board and persuade the residents of the quality of your point of view. And I just think that's a huge obstacle to overcome at a time when we have very little time to do that. So that's all I have to say for right now.
Thank you. Shabnam or Bob, I want to give you an opportunity to respond and speak.
Okay, well, I have to say I agree with both Mark and Carol. While I appreciate your service, John, I think that your presidency has become so divisive that I fear that the board going forward is not going to be able to get any meaningful work done and accomplish its mission for the village. And that's really all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Shabnam, that leaves you. You want to share any comments in regards to the letter?
John, what do you think the job of the president is?
I think the job of the president is to, bridge this board and the staff to stay on top of issues, communicate effectively with the board and with the residents, help set the agenda. And, I think we've accomplished a lot this year. I even look at the logic issue. That was 6 weeks of intense work put in by a lot of trustees in terms of the due diligence. Brian's work. That time we were dealing with budget planning, 3-4 CIPs, the police union negotiation. Down a staff member with David. And so, my job as president is to make sure that things go smoothly. Now, is it to resign in response to some of the accusations that have been made in public meetings? That I lied, that I'm committing felonies. That's completely unfair.
Let me follow up on that.
And let me finish my thought. And for me to resign in the face of that, I've been on this board for 13 years. No one's ever challenged or claimed that I lied. In my 40-year career, as a corporate executive, as a nonprofit leader, as someone who served on numerous boards, no one's ever claimed that.
So let me follow
So for
up.
me to resign as a result of some of those claims and people, making those accusations and supporting those with supposed facts, it's not something I'm going to agree to.
Okay.
And I think I continue to be effective. I was in Brazil for the COP30. And, we had a discussion about facilities. I came prepared. I reached out to the community. I got good feedback from people like Mark Sundquist and put that together and made sure it was available for the meeting and for the discussion as we prepare for our December 13th session. So I'm fully engaged. But a lot of the concern, a lot of the accusations are just assumed to be true. And they're very damaging and they reflect poorly on me. And for me to make a decision of that magnitude, because someone says something or somebody accuses me of something, is not something I'm going to agree to.
Okay, can I follow up?
Yeah.
So what I heard you say is the accusations are lies and they're not true. So let's start with one of them. There's a disagreement on access to information. We had the P&L, but we didn't. And let's just say you didn't. Okay. But there were other spreadsheets that you had and you acknowledged by shaking your head. Can you just say yes?
The staff had,
Yes,
it,
okay.
absolutely, yeah.
And, but when we ask you for it, in an email exchange, where I'm asking for it, why are you not sending them?
You know, Shabnam, this happened after you sent an email accusing me of committing felonies and lying in a public meeting.
There are repeated emails in that.
But sorry, it's an open records request. And so Brian and Chrissy, they're working on that.
Do you
But there's bad faith
understand how problematic it is that you could take this fire out? You could throw water on it by just sending and sharing the spreadsheets that you're saying you have, that we all have access to.
You were provided with everything that I had.
How, but I still don't have it, but I have a laptop. So just tell me where I can go in my email, what link I can click on, where on the website I can go, because you're saying right now I have access to it. So just tell me where to go.
Shabnam, it's my understanding that Brian's sent you that information previously. So that's all we have.
Do you, okay.
Let me just finish my thought. The other point here is that the operations of the logic operations are totally irrelevant. Bob and Mark made that very clear with their analysis. You don't base something on a failed business model. Now, the question that Kate raised about profit, I saw one sheet of paper that showed $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a month revenue at the top. I don't know what that is. I'm certainly not an accountant. I'm not a forensic auditor, but that information to us was irrelevant. What was relevant was what's the value of the real estate, how that appraisal comes out. What does an independent appraiser say the market lease potential of that operation is? That's what was relevant.
Who's us? You said it was relevant to, that wasn't relevant to us.
Discussions
So
I
who's
had,
us?
that's discussions I've had within the board, discussions I've had with staff.
Who's us? It wasn't relevant to us.
Us is the board.
But it was relevant to me. It was relevant to others.
Then,
So how could I?
Each trustee has a responsibility. I mean, Bob and Mark were doing the financial analysis. They've got experience there. I have less experience there. I was more involved in the, what's the potential lease model look like? What does the professional management look like? Other people were doing other things, very compressed timetable. So, I mean, one phone call would have been great, but I can tell you the P&L you received from Tim, we never got. I mean, there's, I don't know how many tabs.
Something else. You acknowledge you have something else.
We got 3 sheets. And we got a second email that had some additional sheets, but that's it. But there was nothing you could make.
How could I have access to those documents?
You were provided with it.
Where? Tell me where I can go.
I'm gonna interrupt and I apologize. As I stated before, it's not necessarily in my interest as moderating the meeting to necessarily go after a witch hunt here. And more importantly, I guess I'd like to stay focused on what Carol and I had put together in the letter, and which is very poignant to John asking him to resign. Shabnam, I want to give you the liberty of asking you questions and sort of going through it, but also want to get to what your position is.
So if you walk down Harvard Drive, there's a handwritten yard sign, and it says, "The quality of leadership is integrity." It's a quote by Dwight Eisenhower. And without it, you cannot have any success. So that's where I want to start, is with integrity. And Brene Brown defines integrity as choosing courage over comfort, choosing what is right over what is fun, fast, and easy, and choosing to practice our values rather than simply professing them. And integrity is expensive. There's a cost to it. You will lose relationships. You will be labeled as difficult. You'll lose allies. Now let's look at some demonstrated facts on what's happened. Since May of 2025, at least 6 months, at least it's been 6 months, public comment period has averaged between 2 to 3 hours, and most of those comments have been directed not at the board, but at the president. Open records requests, during my time on the board, I think it was a surprise if anybody made an open records request 6 years ago, and now they come in daily. Calls for resignation. Carolee Mahaney, David DeVito, Kate Crowley, Brian Utchik, Jennifer Ratner Rosenhagen, Mary Wyman, Carrie Riley, Peter Hans, John Taylor, Jim Coors, Alenka Weinhold, Carla Love, Gloria Beach, Paul Lambert, and Nathan today, and others have made a call for resignation. I think that's a lot. I think that one is sufficient. That's a high number. And then there's the unanswered lingering questions. And then there's the childish behavior, removing parts of that email thread and then asking everybody to forward it when you removed my responses in the email thread. And Gloria called you out on that. Inserting rebuttals into the packet. The performance review for the former administrator had 70% comments from you and Mark, and the rest of us had very little. And then, I mean, I can go on and on. I think, I would like to, I don't know, I keep trying to figure out like what is wrong and why can't we get past this? And the only thing that comes to my mind is, John, I don't think you can hear people. I think if John Clancy says, I want an investigation, something went wrong, the CSM, something is off, you interpret that as a personal attack on you. You don't actually hear what the person is saying. And I think that at the end of the day, every time somebody has asked for accountability, it's been met with defensiveness, deflection, and dismissiveness. So for me, why we can't move forward is that every time there's a communication, I don't think I'm heard, and I don't think the residents are heard. And in our working relationships, it's been like we're just a pawn. We're not a team. When you and I and Bob met for facilities, we would have a meeting and say, okay, we're going to meet again in 3 weeks with a goal. And during those 3 weeks, you would go off on your own, talk to somebody else, insert a memo in the board packet that Bob and I would not see until we got there. And so maybe, I think the problem is like some of this stuff you keep wanting feedback for, you can't learn on the job. We never hired an administrator that lacked experience. And here you're frequently given opportunities to fix things and you're not able to do it. We can't teach you some of this stuff. What it's like to work as a team. You work on your own. You're not inclusive. And I just don't think you understand what the role of a leader is. It's not about a title. It's not about prestige. It's about building the foundation for everybody else and empowering the board, empowering the trustees. You build the stage for everybody else to perform on. And as long as you think the leadership position is about you, it's never going to work. It's just not going to work. It's hard for me. I'm going to tell you why it's hard for me, because I think I actually do have I can understand. I have empathy. I have a very high level of empathy. I keep wanting to fix things, and it's hard to know that like that's just not an option. It's hard. I give up too. I give up. I asked for your I can't tell you. I want you to know how pissed off I was, how shocked I was to know that you guys had these numbers and didn't share it with us. I went home that day and I thought to myself, why didn't I ask for this earlier? And all I could think of is I trusted the word transparency. I trusted, and I never should have trusted. That's what I've taken away from this. Never trust, not trust, never trust. And what you've brought out in me over the last 2-3 years is the worst. You think I want to copy the residents when I email you? I'm embarrassed that we have to communicate that way. But that's where we're at. And one more important thing, you guys as staff do not work for the president. You do not work for the president. You work for the board. You do not answer to the president. And the thing that I sometimes hear among staff, that you actually don't even work for the board, you work for the majority of the board. I don't know what that means. So who's in the majority? I've heard Julie say it. We don't actually work for the board. We work for the majority of the board. And I think, you know, David DeVito said it's a bittersweet moment. It is the time to have a change. And so to go on the record, I will be the 6th trustee to ask for your resignation today.
Would you like to add any comment?
I'll just say, I mean, I'm not perfect by any means. I think we worked very effectively as a team on the logic information. Some would question that, but the amount of information that we cranked out in a very short period of time, I think that speaks to what we can achieve as a team if we work together. That's one. Two, I have a ready, fire, aim personality at times, which can turn into ready, fire, blame, where I will go off and I will really be focused on productivity and trying to move the ball forward. I'm disappointed by some of the comments, certainly that the residents have made and the accusations that have made, and that's my biggest concern, is that I'm being asked to resign in the face of what are really unfair comments and unsubstantiated accusations. I just have a fundamental problem with that. If you look at my record over the years, I've done nothing but commit the time and sweat and energy to moving the village forward. And I can list things that we accomplished this year that I think really made a difference for the taxpayers. And I think in my record, both as a trustee, as a committee chair, and as president, I think it has not been perfect, but we have achieved a lot, and we could achieve more. But to resign in the face of the accusations and the email chains and the claims that I lied and that I'm committing felonies and look out, that's not gonna be persuasive for my decision making. I hope you can understand that.
Shabana, the floor is still yours.
Sure. What is persuasive for you to resign?
Well, if we can't be effective as a body, that would be something that, I would have to consider moving forward. But I look at the latest thing I did, the facilities proposal I put out there, that was all public focused. That was in response to residents on how to structure this moving forward. I hope everyone read that.
6 trustees asked you to resign. What do you want to do with that?
I think I've already responded. I mean, I'm receiving this information today. But I'm also, we've all received stuff that's out in the email sphere. That's being forwarded to residents quite unfairly. Some of it's defamatory. So that's a concern. I would have liked some of the trustees to stand up and just say, these accusations, these unfounded accusations are really unfair and are being used in a way that is damaging not only to John, but damaging to this board and this community. And so I hope you can understand that in the face of that, I certainly am not going to resign my presidency. There's a process for that. If residents feel like, they need to move forward with that process, then they will move forward with that process.
I think there's a question for the board, and we can bring it doesn't sound like John is resigning. But if we need to have another meeting that would require a vote over gross misconduct for the board to remove John from his seat, we can certainly do that.
John, I'm going to put you on pause real quick. Carol, then we'll go to John. I'd like to add a couple of comments as well. So, if you don't mind, Carol.
I just have a brief comment in response to your comment that the thing that would convince you to resign is if the board is not effective. And it's my perception, that's where we are. We are not being effective. You know, we have meetings until 2 a.m. and we're exhausted and we're caught in a swirl of email and talk, and everyone's unhappy. And to laser focus on the good stuff that we need to do is almost impossible. So in my mind, board already not functioning. That's where we are.
Gonna have to wait. I'm gonna go to John, then me, and then you.
Yeah, I know our attorney, Bill Cole, is here. Bill, I mean, you're an observer today. Any remarks, any thoughts you wish to share regarding this?
Bill, I'm gonna temper this by only as it's relevant to really any formal conduct of business or anything like that. I'm guessing you know that, keep your personal opinions out of this.
I'm not a resident. Yeah, my role is not to opine on policy or anything else. The honest truth, John, is my opinion is absolutely.
But I guess the question I was gonna ask was, Shabnam mentioned gross misconduct. I mean, could you comment on that threshold?
Yeah, so legally, so misconduct, yeah, it's the statutes talks about, at least for village presidents, gross neglect of duty, which is not defined. Neglect of duty is not defined. It's defined in Black's Law Dictionary as a failure to perform one or more necessary duties. I would say gross is something higher than that. How much higher? As I say, it's not. It is ultimately up to a majority of the board to determine what necessary findings. Subject to, of course, to a certification. I can tell you just from tangential experience on this stuff, because keep in mind, these proceedings are exceeding. I mean, in my career, there's only been it doesn't happen. It is almost always physical inabilities, mental illness, that sort of stuff, addiction, that sort of stuff, criminal conduct, that sort of stuff, financial malfeasance, they just checking out of the position, people that sort of quietly, with the quiet quitting, they just stop showing up for work. It's that vein of conduct. It's not policies. Other than that, the frank reality is there's not much guidance under the law as to more specifically what that.
Like add anything else?
No.
Mark did though.
I'm gonna add a few comments on my end here. Just clear my throat. Literally, the oatmeal didn't do it yet. Anyway, John, Chrissy, please let the record reflect. John, you do not have the board behind you. None of the trustees believe in you or your process as a leader. I would like the record to reflect. I would like you to resign today. Most of the time, sort of search around in the dark, stumble on things. And at certain times, the light turns on. The light turned on. The light turns on today, and we have to keep moving forward. My motivation is not rooted in any things in the past, but the inability to move forward effectively. As a matter of fact, I think you're a good person. And I believe sincerely and wholeheartedly that over your career, you have done good for the village, you've made the village better. And you have put a mark on the village in your own way. It is time to move on. An effective leader needs to recognize that it's not their era. You should and must resign. This body is not behind you. What you decide to do is between you and the constituents that are watching the reporting, and that are here today. We must get business done. It will not happen with you at the helm. This has nothing to do with you being a person of good quality and thoughtful comments and sincere interest in improving our village. Please move aside, get out of the way, let this body function, and more importantly, in line with what we're coming up against, which is in another election cycle, and we'll have perhaps new members on this board and on this body, which must be led effectively. There are a lot of things to do. I've mentioned this to you before. Look yourself in the mirror, check in with your family, check in with your kids. It's time to be done. Get out of the way. Those are my comments. And I wholeheartedly believe that everything that you believe be doing right for the village is truly your intent. And those are your intentions. Every time that I hear you speak as of late, I walk away with half truths. I feel left with, something doesn't add up. And that has to stop. We need to move on and look forward and look forward. Those are my comments. Mark, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. John, from what you said, I think this issue of the accusations and the correctness of those accusations is a big issue with you with respect to resigning. But I have to say that I don't see the resignation as any admission of any guilt on your part, any errors on your part. I hope you would look at resignation as something forward-looking rather than backward-looking, and say, my interest has always been in the best interest of the village. That's where my focus has been my entire career with the village. And it's from that forward-looking perspective, given where the board is and where many residents are at this point, that seems to be the best way to serve the village. I don't know whether these accusations will ever be proven. I don't even want to spend the time trying to figure out the truth of them, okay? And I hope that you could kind of move beyond that issue and just focus on what works best for the village, what's in the best interest of the village going forward, and your effectiveness in leading the board going forward. And I think that's an area where I don't see any amount of further discussion kind of changing where we are. And from that perspective, I hope that it would be easier for you to understand and accept where we are now and what's in our best interest. That's all I have to say.
All right. John, I think it is important that we as a body and as a board get to a conclusion. And I don't know how to capture that, how to memorialize this. The record reflects that the body is not behind all of us. I think the decision is to you and what you would like to do. And I try to state it, I think Mark just clarified perhaps in a better way. My motivation is not necessarily to look back, but only rooted in the focus of the current and now looking. Please resign. Please get out of the way. Let the body function. I think I think we need to have an answer. We need to have an answer by end of business today. So please talk to your family. Look at this and see what is in the best interest of.
Thank you, Dietmar.
Are there any other comments from trustees?
One last one.
Please.
Could you sign that?
I haven't even reviewed it yet. But I will. I'm happy to. I don't have a problem signing stuff. And then Chrissy, I'll make sure that my statement today becomes part of the minutes for the meeting. Make sure I send you that.
So we're asking for your formal action, and I guess I shouldn't speak for the body, for the board. So this is in a way, not a formal straw poll or anything by that, but I think we deserve an answer. We deserve an answer by end of date. It is clear that the body's not behind you. We need to govern effectively and efficiently. So I'm going to scan the room, and I guess maybe just with a head nod. Are we clear on that? That's our position as a body and as a board. There might be other motivations in this. Kate, I see you nodding your head. Shabnam, I see you nodding your head. Bob?
I've made my statement.
Yep. Okay. We'd like an answer. End of business today, please. That concludes this meeting. I don't have anything else to add. John, do you have anything that you want to state before we leave?
No, I appreciate everyone taking the time. I take to heart the comments that were shared today. I'm sure Kathy and I will have a conversation. And if we don't get a chance to chat further this week, have an enjoyable and happy Thanksgiving with your families.
Thank you. Now, we can sit here, stare at each other, or I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Carol, second. All those in favor? Thank you. Proceed to minus 10.
Water.